Welcome to Muay Thai Bones, Couch Edition.
We're doing something up. We're switching Muay Thai Bones up a little bit. If you've been with us for the long haul, almost all of our Muay Thai Bones are like 3 hours long on the road in the car. But we're thinking about bringing more Muay Thai Bones episodes to you more frequently, and maybe cutting these down. We'll still do long car editions when we're in the car, but we're not in the car very often. And so we're thinking about doing these about 90 minutes or so, taking on topics and giving them, producing an episode more frequently. How do you feel about that? You're very quiet today.
I think it's good. I think that, one, I love that we have like super long 3 hour, 4 hour podcast
Crazy
discussions.
podcasts.
But I also know that they're not super consumable for people all the time at that length. They kind of break them up. So having like a smaller.
I'm going to say that we kind of made the Muay Thai Bones epically long to just make the most loyal, like intense.
How committed are you?
How committed are you? We gave no like time signatures for anything. It was like only the people who are absolutely crazy about Muay Thai and things we were talking about would just. But then people would put the video up on there. They'd show us their big wide flat screen, and they'd put the video up, and they'd get on the road with us.
And my mom would be like, "I'm working my way through it."
But people more committed than your mom, even, they would sit down.
She listens because she loves me. People listen because they love what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
So we're not sure how this is headed, but I kind of would also like to visit thoughtful topics more often than once a month or so, right? So if you're new to the Muay Thai Bones, we got a T-shirt, which I'm wearing made by Bleeding Edge. The sale of our T-shirts and all of Sylvie's apparel goes to the Crew Fund, or sometimes there's T-shirts for like Karahat or Yokunpan, and 100% of the profit of that goes to them. Otherwise, it goes to the Crew Fund, and it's money is distributed to people that we've documented in the Muay Thai Library. And what we do is we just cover what are kind of non-typical Muay Thai related topics. We try to take deep dives sometimes on philosophical or cultural or training things.
We have lots of thoughts about stuff.
Yeah.
And so we talk about it. And when we discuss Muay Thai, we discuss Muay Thai as it branches into all kinds of different things. These are how we talk about Muay Thai. So this is not how do we talk about that?
It's also how we think about Muay Thai. Like, Muay Thai has consumed your life. It is the dominant, preoccupation, art form, obsession. It just is everything. You sit down and watch fights stadium fights to zone out. It is an amazing component of our lives. So what we're doing is we're really sharing what Muay Thai means to us, and hopefully in interesting ways get you guys thinking. And if you ever have topics that you want us to cover, or you have a response to what we've had in the Muay Thai Bones Library, you can go to the roundtable, the Muay Thai Roundtable forum, which we set up, and we can continue discussions there. It's a quiet little corner of the internet. There's no blah, 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 arguments or anything like that. It's just
it's a very non-forum-y forum, which is nice. People are very thoughtful.
Yeah, it's very cool. Okay, so what's the first topic here?
We did a 15 rules of Muay Thai that got a bit of a response from people. And most people were like, this is great. And some people were like, I don't understand. And then they would give a number of one of the 15 that was unclear, because they're short. They're not super.
They're kind of like little pithy guidelines of what to do in Muay Thai that we've discovered, right? That you've discovered, right?
Yeah, tools of navigation for doing Muay Thai in Thailand long term.
Totally. And if you're new to finding out who Sylvie is, Sylvie has fought 267 times, more than any Western man or woman, actually twice more than any Western man and woman. it's incredible what you've achieved. Really like trailblazer with a machete. And it's not just the fights, but it's all the things that are involved in fighting, like navigating opportunities as a woman, as a Westerner. You have to have 267 fights. You have to set up 267 fights. And so a large part, kind of hidden part of what you do is how you navigate Thai culture and form relationships that have helped you been able to fight the way you fight. So that's also reflected in these rules. I'll see how lazy I am about putting up a graphic. Maybe we'll pop in the graphic, or they'll be in the reading notes. There'll be a link to the Instagram post. But maybe we're gonna just go through these, and we'll probably focus on one or two of them that were really kind of super interesting or important. But let's read them all real quick.
Okay, so 1, posture matters. 2, fight a ton. 3, stay clear of the politics and the powerful. 4, legends are libraries of wisdom. 5, bring shine to others. 6, train exhaustion so you can fight exhausted. 7, knees kill fighters who need space. 8, clinch is the hidden art. 9, your style is your fate. 10, every fighter has a breaking point. Find theirs, hide yours. 11, work for hours for just the last 2 minutes of growth. 12, don't try to be the best, change the game. 13, defense wins. 14, if you're good, fight up. 15, if you're thinking, it's already too late.
So these are 15 rules for Muay Thai. Maybe we'll go into. We can go into others, and maybe in other Muay Thai Bones podcasts. This would honestly, if we did all 15 in depth, it would be
welcome to a 5-hour podcast.
It would be a 5-hour podcast, because each one there was an amazing amount of experience that led to that realization, right? I would say.
Or why it gets tacked to the door as a rule rather than like just something that you learned along the way.
Totally. So how do we want to handle this? Well, we can run through them real quick. So posture matters has to do with Roop. We've discussed Roop, the Thai concept of Roop, in a past podcast. It basically is about how you present yourself in the ring. It's very important to Muay Thai scoring. The scoring of Thailand, which is being eroded to some degree as you get more kickboxing, aggro style fighting, something we've talked a lot about. Fight a ton.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Well, but you know what? This is a huge change from when you came up. Everybody was like quality, not quantity, and everybody was kind of on a belt hunt. Everybody wanted to be world champion, and you'd figure out how to be world champion. And very often, that means picking fights that you can win. If you're not picking them, if you're in Thailand, your gym is picking them for you. They're finding opponents maybe a little bit smaller than you, or that you have some kind of advantage on. This is typically how Muay Thai is done in Thailand, in that, of course, the gym is interested in glory, right? And money, because they bet on fights.
And keeping you as a customer.
That's true too. And so not fighting a ton was the way a lot of people did Muay Thai. Not everyone.
There was also in the quality, not quantity thing, there was I fight this good fighter rather than 5 fighters. And it's yeah, but that fighter's good because she fought a ton.
That's true.
Her story.
That's how Thais
kind of funny.
Get good. How Thais get good is because they fought a ton. And so we're not going to get into the quality and quantity thing too much here. Maybe we could do a little section on that another episode. But you fight quality and quantity.
Yes.
So you fight an elite fighter, but you also fight a fighter who's more of a circuit fighter, but has 2 weight classes on you. So they have, and when you fight a ton, You take a lot of mismatches where you actually are the underdog.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we talk about, we got on a little sidetrack here.
I know.
Part
I'm
of the
one that we
reason
weren't going to cover.
Yeah, part of the reason why we talk about this is you're not aiming for belts. You're aiming for an experience and fluency in Muay Thai that really maybe doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah, there's also, to me personally, something kind of incredible about when you fight a lot, and in that group, you're going to be fighting world champions who are bigger than you, who have experience, blah, blah, blah. Like, you have these kind of like gem fighters within the kind of like ebb and flow of more average fighters or whatever.
Fighters.
The thing
They're
is,
circuit fighters.
I've also fought that gem 8 times. I fought Tananchinook 8 times.
A world
so
champion.
Rather than like, it's
2
quality,
weight
not
classes.
quantity.
Yeah.
So I fought
Up
this
above
one
you.
champion one time and didn't win, but it's because she's champion, or did win and so I'm the best. It's like, yeah, I fought her 8 times. Like,
Totally.
it's a lot. It's different.
But also gave up 2 weight classes.
That's what I'm saying.
If
It's not a like
yeah.
spark in. Oh, I have all of these like mediocre fights and then a spark of a good one. It's like, it's everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Totally. I don't think you have mediocre fights. Every fight has been very hard for you.
Very hard.
You've gotten very fatigued, emotionally and psychologically fatigued at giving up 3 weight classes.
This is a different
regularly.
Muay Thai Bones. This is a different conversation. But like, how does Sylvie deal with the always being outsized? Like always.
Way outsized.
Yeah.
Like 5 kilos, 10 kilos, even more sometimes. It's what we've had to take on. But that would make a really good Muay Thai Bones
Earmark it.
subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, this is going to be hard to go through this list.
Well, let's get to this one because people had questions about this one.
Okay.
Stay clear of politics and powerful.
This is actually what made me think we got to do this with the Muay Thai Bones, because it's not. We tried to answer a little bit on Instagram, but it's actually a very complicated thing. So it's, what is it? Stay clear of the politics and the powerful. Wow, this is a very big topic, baby. A lot of this is my instincts. But you're just saying that. You're like not agreeing with me.
I said, that's an
Yeah,
agreement.
but very quietly.
I'm
like,
waiting for you to get to what you're talking about. Because this is actually not true universally. But
What do you mean universally?
if you're a totally normal dude coming to fight in Thailand, you don't want to steer clear of the politics and the powerful. You want to get in the vein of the politics and the powerful to like get your fight at Lumpini or Rajadamner.
These rules are not for other people. But that's another thing, is that these are the rules that we go by.
in order to do what I do.
You might not fight a ton. Like, I don't want to go fight a ton. I don't want to steer clear of the politics and the powerful. I want to get with the most powerful, right? So this is not us telling everybody you're doing it wrong, or to do it right, you follow these rules.
To
These
clarify,
are our
it is
rules.
my 15 rules, not
Totally.
the 15 rules.
Totally.
Yeah.
And a lot of these rules go against common practices.
Yeah.
Okay, so, wow, how do we get to this politics and the powerful? My opinion is there is no ready-made path to Yod Muay for a female fighter. In the world, the closest thing would be what the UFC experiences. They get a lot of fight opportunities, they make them stars, female fighters fight very good opposition, that kind of steel on steel, steel sharpening steel. In female Muay Thai, there literally is no path to what we call Yod Muay. And what Yod Muay is, there really aren't even Yod Muay anymore. Maybe Sanchai was the last Yod Muay. Yod Muay is an elite fighter. Generally, of the historical examples are almost all found in the Golden Age, when Thailand had the pinnacle of money, investment, talent pool, gyms, huge matchups. It produced Yod Muay, these just magical fighters, and we'll talk about magical fighters later. None of that even exists, I don't think, for men anymore,
No, not
but
anymore.
for women it has never existed. So that means that all of the power centers of Muay Thai, which can be anything from a, is it okay? Mm-hmm. Anything from a gym structure. There's always politics in gyms, hierarchy in Thailand, or an org like a WPMF or WBC, like a certifying org, or powerful promotions that control matchups and
promote a fighter or their stable of fighters or something.
Yeah, there are power structures throughout all of Muay Thai, and there's nothing wrong with power structures. Things get done that produce Muay Thai, and there needs to be power structures on the micro level to the max level. None of those power structures, they're all producing contemporary Muay Thai. In contemporary Muay Thai, there's no path for Yod Muay for female fighters. So, insofar as you align yourself with a power structure, you're part of a system that does not produce what you want to become.
That can't produce.
That cannot. Like if you stay in that power structure, I often think of conveyor belts, Ford Motor Company, or some kind of factory.
Like assembly line.
Assembly line. The assembly line, the power structure produces a certain thing. You put things in on the front part of the assembly line, it gets assembled, and it comes out. If you want to know what the power structure produces, look at what they produce, what comes out at the end. What female fighters have, and many kinds of fighters might also have this too, but Western female fighters have. They have the difficulty of using power structures, entering power structures, assembly lines that don't make what they want to become.
Yeah.
But they give you qualities and aspects and opportunities to get you closer to what you want to become. Do you know what I kind of mean? It's like, for us, it's kind of like, get on the assembly line, get 1/3 through the assembly line and hop off before it goes in this other direction. Mm. And then get on another assembly line. Mm. So this is my basic framework about you trying to get to Yod Muay, is that unlike other people, other kinds of people, whether they be Thai men, Thai boys, Thai men, Western men, the power structures really don't create the path you're looking for. And we've mentioned it, the path is not world champion, something like world champion. There do exist power structures to produce female world champions. And some gyms and promotions produce a lot of them. Mm. I feel like I'm now talking too much because now I've got you very quiet.
Well, the thing is that you're making an argument for not putting yourself on an assembly line that doesn't create the thing that you want to be, and that makes sense. But what we said is stay away from the powerful, which basically is saying, like, not only does that assembly line not produce what you want to be, so don't get on that assembly line, but there is also this, like, get on our assembly line, we'll make you this thing, and you go, no. I'm going to Zatoichi it. I'm going to, like, rogue my way.
Watch Zatoichi. If you want to understand something cool, watch Zatoichi.
Because there are examples of things. Right now is actually an interesting time for female Muay Thai, where you have Channel 8 has 2 promotions that are really promoting their female fighters. So
in an amazing way.
This is powerful. Like, this is something that you're like, I totally want to get on board with that. Or you can have something like, there isn't one like this right now. All these women come from different gyms. But if there was a gym that produced female fighters that got to fight on TV and got to have world opportunities.
In the past, examples were Khao Samrit Gym. Before that, Sinbi.
Well, even Fairtex now is getting female fighters that they can put on one. Like, they're kind of producing this thing that you're like, I do like what that assembly line is producing. Like, I do want to get on that conveyor belt. But the thing about this is that when you put yourself in this power structure that produces one thing recently, like not for a long time, but it's very recently producing this thing, you don't have power within the power structure. So if things go a different way, or the like, it's you just
it's not
let
only,
go of the reins of your own
It's not
path.
only about power, though. It's not like you're looking for power. It also has something to do with the way that Thai culture is that it's a very respect-driven, hierarchical culture. And so once you're in a power dynamic, a power structure, it is very easy to offend and alienate the people within it if you don't follow everything. Like a perfect loose example is, if you fight for one promotion, you should not fight for another
Well,
promotion.
you can't fight for another promotion if you're in that.
As a woman,
if
that's
you're
not
in that
true.
vein.
It's not true. But you produce tension.
Yeah.
You produce tension if you're within one power structure, and then you move over to the left and you go to another power structure. And because you're a super respectful person and you hate producing any kind of offense, we just simply avoid those deep attachments to any power structure. We did it in America too. This isn't just Thailand. It's like you had no gym. You only aligned yourself with people who would allow you the freedom to pursue additional opportunities. And that was trial and error, because then some gym situations would be offended that you're training with another coach, or you're doing this other thing, or you're not following their advice for your career. And this is just trial and error. We just constantly have been learning what is the baby bear proximity to power in America and here. And honestly, the development of Patreon and the Muay Thai Library and the support of sponsors has been the mechanism by which we were able to stay further away from power and politics than we would otherwise. Because when you come to Thailand, you don't have that. We developed this over time. Like, everybody's like, Patreon, blah, blah, I'll make a Patreon. But you wrote on a blog over 1,000 articles on 8 Limbs Us for 5 years. No money raising or anything. You developed an audience that was interested in the knowledge that you were discovering, but also the relationship to you as a person. And so a lot of the opportunity that's developed outside of power structures have been through the support of patrons that have been able to make this possible. But what this rule is about is kind of like our basic instinct that when there's this big blah, blah, blah thing, we want to move away from it. Because we don't know what strings are attached. And in general, in Thailand, when there's a very powerful move being made, it's very easy to produce tensions if you are not following along in all the ways. And part of this is, this rule is in response to explaining. People are like, why don't you fight on one, blah, blah, blah. There are lots of reasons why you don't fight on one or aren't wanting to fight on one. And we could go into those. We've gone to them in the past. But the largest reason is exactly this, what we're describing, which is when there's a big gravitational planet, we create a very wide orbit. I feel like I've talked you into silence.
Maybe. But that's
Okay.
what the thing is.
Now I'm
It's
calling
like-
you into talking.
It's like if you're a very independent, financially stable, on the edge of successful woman that then a very rich, influential, powerful man becomes romantically interested in, you don't win by like joining up with that. Like, you don't get more independence from joining up with that.
You can't just broadly say that. You should say that entering into that relationship would probably become very complicated.
Yeah.
Like,
not more freedom, for sure.
well, he's like, honey, I want to give you $5 million to start
That's
a
what people
foundation.
are talking about.
That
People
is,
are
yeah.
like, go to this, go to that, because they're going to be like, I'll take care of you. I'll put you on this
Yeah.
promotion. I'll
Yeah.
promote you. I'll do this. I'll do that. You're like, that sounds great, but then it's only that. It's like
Yeah.
very narrow.
And so, I don't know. For me, this is something that is kind of a golden rule that goes all the way down to the personal level. That when even training with a crew, or like for instance, a crew will train with you and be like, oh my God, the things I could do with your skills and da da da, and get way into how strong or talented you are, your immediate response is, if you're super excited, I want to step back from that. And I think it really comes down to this larger idea, which I was talking about, which is all the assembly lines do not lead to what you want to become.
Right.
This Yod Moy magical fighter. And so what we've had to do in such a complicated way, and with the help of so many people, we've had to piece together the path towards where you want to be. Basically, and this
we're charting a map. Like there's no map of where I'm trying to go currently.
Is everything okay?
Yep.
Oh, it's at 2 minutes. So let's stop this and go. Oh, continuing on, we had a quick battery change. The other half of this goes to, what is number? Bring shine to others. This is the other half of avoid politics and the powerful, which is, we feel like we want to stay away from big movements in the scene and chart our own path by piecing together our relationships to power, this promotion. Like, for instance, the Karchuk promotion is just fucking loves you.
And that is a big promotion.
It's a televised promotion. So far, they haven't tried to control you or anything like that. And they really celebrate you. And so, like, feeling our way towards them, it feels like it's a kind of 50-50 kind of balance. But so we do find relationships with powerful people and promotions, but we're always feeling that distance. But the other half of this, it's not like we're just using things. Our mission is that when we align with someone, is to just bring shine to them. And what does that mean for you? Because this feels like a big part of what you do and are.
Well, the Karchuk promotion is a good example because they're stoked when I fight on their show. They're like, Sylvie's here. Like, this is awesome for us. And I'm stoked to fight on the show because I love the show. I love Karchuk. So it's like everyone's happy and there's no like control from either side. I don't demand anything from them other than that they pay me to fight.
Yeah,
and
you're like
give me good
whatever
opponents.
opponent, but you're basically like, pick my opponent for me. You're not like, I want an opponent that I can beat or anything. There's nothing like that.
I have very few demands. I'm just happy to like go do it. And
One
then
of them was that you don't like to fight 3-round fights. They kind of tricked you into fighting a
fooled me on
3-round
this last
fight.
one. I was at the media event the day before, and the promoter was actually like saying wonderful things about me and talking about me and my opponent, and he mentioned that it was 3 rounds. So I found out it was 3 rounds at the media event by listening to what he was saying, and I was like, what like record scratch? Like, wait, what? 3 rounds? Like, I don't want to do that. But yeah, so it's like we're mutually
Yeah, but it's
pleased with each other.
But that is not bringing shine. What is bringing shine?
Well, I bring shine to the event because I'm a name that people recognize. They like the way I fight. I'm a good addition to the card. I'm exciting, whatever. Like, I bring that to them. And they bring to me this, like, opportunity that is not super common. Like, not everyone gets to fight on Karchuk or on TV. But it reminds me of, he's not a promoter. He's hard to explain. There's someone who's like he is politically positioned and powerful to a degree for female fighters. He books a lot of female fighters. And he really liked me because I'm small, I'm Western, so he could get his fighters on pretty big cards because he brought the opponent with them. It's like, I've got Sylvie, I'll just match with Sylvie, got a Farang so we can put them on a card. And it was like, this is great because Sylvie fights a lot. She's always ready, she's small, she can go on a card. This was like awesome for him, good for me, I was having opportunities. But our relationship fell apart because he loved all these qualities about me of always being ready, always down to fight, not a lot of like back and forth about who I'm fighting or whatever the thing is. I do that not only with him, I do that with everybody. Like, yes, I fight everywhere. Yes, I'm ready to fight everywhere. And he didn't want that. He wanted exclusivity. And we had a fight because he was like, you do this with me, not with everyone. Like, no, I do it with everybody.
Not only that, he started trying to undermine you and go behind your back and force you to do things exclusively to him. And he was we realized he's a very destructive force.
Right.
And I understand what he's doing. He's playing his game and his angles, but he actually was impacting our lives and our situation in a very big way. And we were like, holy fuck, we've been violating the rule of staying close to the powerful.
Which is the thing that, like, if you get too close to that politics and power, we're feeding off of each other. It's working out pretty well. But because he's so aligned and powerful, when we were like, okay, no, distance, it cut out a lot of fights for me because he controls all these female fighters. And so it was like, you just cut off like this huge arm.
Well, did and didn't.
That's why you stay away from it.
Yeah, but did and didn't because he controls females that are your weight and you don't fight people your weight anymore.
That's true.
So you actually just went to fighting 2 or 3 weight classes above. And actually we didn't even do that on purpose. It just evolved that way. Yeah. And it turns out that women your weight were no longer even opponents for you. So it kind of all worked out in that way. But this is just an example. And this is the weird thing. It's like there's no bad guy here in this way. It's that in Thailand, when you do business with each other, when you become entwined with each other, the world generally becomes narrowed.
Yes.
And it's just an aspect of the culture. And as a Westerner, where we think in terms of personal freedom and creating your own opportunity, foraging paths, this is antithetical to what happens generally in Thai culture. And so as a Westerner, you have to be sensitive. Like, honest to God, it's about sensitivity to what other people are experiencing too. It's not just like, this is all bad. It's like, I cannot get on that assembly line and then stay on it.
Right, but that also goes into your bringing shine. You're putting yourself far.
Thank you, baby.
That's also one of the things that it's like bring shine, is that like with this guy who we had the falling out with, like with the Kartchuk promotion, it's just it's just good. It's just good when I'm there. It's fine when I'm not. Like, just shine, shine, shine. Once you get a little bit too close, it starts to like burn. Like, you can actually embarrass people. Whereas with distance, you don't bring any shame to anybody.
That's a very good point, is that when you get very closely intertwined, suddenly the name of the person becomes at risk. So Thais are very sensitive to shit talking. You think Westerners shit talk on the internet? Thais are very sensitive to gossipy stuff, and there's a lot of shit talking. So when you start succeeding in Thailand, and I don't mean a person necessarily, but a gym or a promotion, they develop enemies. They get a lot of negative talk on the other side. It becomes very political, which is why we're talking about the politics. And so if someone or a promotion starts to feel like they're under attack, which is what happens when you have success, then everything becomes very constrained because everybody under that umbrella now represents you. So who you are and what you're doing suddenly has ramifications it wouldn't have ever had before. And this is the politics part of it. It's that because we're in a culture that we don't understand and we don't read the Thai gossip, unfortunately sometimes you do, but you shouldn't be. We don't know the ramifications of things in the battle of politics. And so we don't want to be in that close proximity where we're accidentally giving ammunition to people who are the enemies of the power structure. And because we're not part of the culture, we can't avoid stepping in those landmines and keep doing the things you're doing. So actually, as a favor to power structures we deal with, we actually stay baby bear because we don't want to become the source of embarrassment or tension or argument or disagreement, especially from the enemies of those people.
Which is complicated because we are actually trying to do things. We're trying to increase opportunities, and we're not trying to be like super influential, but like when we talk about the Chemical X trying to start female fight opportunities in the North, you have to work with someone.
Yeah.
So it's like we have this relationship with Cobb now, and it's got to still be like
it's so
this, which
so
is really
tricky.
hard.
It's so tricky because we want to bring female Muay Thai fight promotions to Chiang Mai and jumpstart everything after COVID. And there's already a very long political history in that city where promoters fight over
everything.
Yeah. They do not get along with each other.
Yeah.
Stadia do not get along with each other.
It's political which one you fight at.
Fighters, certain fighters fight under certain promotions and not others. This is all stuff that we have to baby bear if we start doing this kind of thing, because honestly we want, and this goes, I want to get into this for a minute. This is going to be a podcast probably on this one subject.
Kind of, we're not.
Yeah. Or you can shoot me a dirty look. This is going to be a 5-hour podcast, Sylvie. We went in this direction like promotions, bring shine to promotions. Actually, to promotions really is not the core example of bringing shine. Bringing shine is, the best examples are our relationships with legends. That when we filmed with Diesel Noi, nobody knew where he was. Like maybe you could be like, I knew where he was. Nobody knew if he was teaching, if he had, what his life situation was. He was doing occasional pop-ups at Master Toddy's. We had no detailed knowledge about him. He is the most incredible man I've ever met. We've brought, and it just comes out of this impulse of bringing shine, a lot of eyeballs to this man. Like, people know now much more about who he is. And matter of fact, we changed his whole fucking life because one of our patrons then found the Samart Diesel Noi fight and gave it to us, and that is now fucking online, and we interviewed him, the Holy Grail of fights. There was always this, well, he beat Samart, blah, 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 but nobody knows what that fight looked like. And now, maybe the crowning achievement of his life is now in the video record archive of what Diesel Noi was, and also what Samart was. That is shine. That has changed his legacy. We say preserve the legacy as one of our themes. I don't know, it's very meaningful that he was an incredible fighter, and now with the help of a patron, he's understood differently by everyone. Then you get highlight people talking about him and breaking down his stuff, and like the whole machinery of commentary on Muay Thai greatness kicks in.
But we're able to, I would say, expose his shine, reveal his shine, give access to his shine, because he fucking shines by himself. But
That's
like,
true.
we're also not trying to control him in any. We don't want him.
No, well,
as
that's
like,
why bring
you're
shine.
exclusively
That's why
us.
I mean bring shine is that it's not a like exchange. Like in the promotions, it's kind of like I do this and you do this. In these situations, we're just like, hey, someone to pay attention to. This guy's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's also, we did it with Sao Sing. We drew great attention to Sao Sing when we brought her to the Muay Thai Summit. I have this feeling like her ascendancy in running the female fight scene out of Super
Channel
Champ and Channel 8 came out of her experience of the Muay Thai Summit and seeing like 20 seriously, 16 dedicated Western female fighters training so hard and bringing in her and Chomani and Dork Ba. I think it changed her perspective about what's possible as a Thai female fighter and promotional ideas. I guess the point about bring shine is in every exchange, when you encounter power, all you're thinking about is how can I bring shine to this? Like we went to film with Yodwicha. It was a great session. Our impulse is bring shine to the gym. Not because you're there, it's like make a video about the gym. Make people aware that you could train with the WBC world champion in Bangkok at this gym. Make it crew Pet Dom, who's an amazing crew there, and we're going to film with him. Bring shine to people. Unless you trained at Kem's gym, you don't know he's one of the best padmen in Thailand. You bring shine, like, I don't know, you shine a light on people. And I feel like that's one of our main motivations in terms of dealing with any kind of power organization. And it's like, we want to find ways to shine a light on areas where the light is not there yet.
I don't want to get all Goethe about it, but it's like loving and admiring a flower versus picking it. I think a lot of people try to pick flowers.
Expand that. Expand what you mean by that.
Even when, so we brought Diesel Noi into Patchworking for a year almost, 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months.
We
And
brought
then
him,
there was,
he was
2
coming
months
3
in.
times a week.
Through the support of patrons, we were able to pay him a salary.
Right, so this was
Yeah.
great for Diesel Noi because it gave him more stability financially. It also put him in direct contact with a living gym with Thai boys, which he fucking needs because he was just like in this malaise, weird space of the people who kind of give him opportunities or bring him places as a star. It's kind of like for licensing or make an appearance or kind of thing. Like to have him actually directly influencing active fighters meant a lot to him. So we were trying to like bookend this thing of like bring his knowledge and influence to living Muay Thai and then put him in a situation where he's interacting with living Muay Thai. When that kind of came to a close, he was looking at other opportunities, and he had been invited to a gym where Nam Kabun had kind of found himself. He went and did like a seminar, and they had invited him to stay, and he was very like not sure what to do. And he was asking me, not like, Sylvie, tell me what to do, but he's like, this is the situation, they're offering me this amount of money, but I have to be here, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I kind of don't know what to do. And I speak very openly with Diesel Noi. We were texting each other, and I was just like, I don't think that's really who you are. You don't like being held in one place. You need to go around.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know my heart. And I'm like, I also know Karahat, who gets like miserable after 6 months being stuck in a place.
Yeah.
And it's this thing where they're like me, where they have this, I have a shine. I can shine when I stay away from these politics and powers that allow me to kind of do what I'm doing. They also need this freedom to go do what they're doing. And these places fucking benefit from letting them shine in their spot, but you can't hold it.
Well, people want to, this is a good side.
Don't pick the flower.
This is a good, well, it's weird because a flower actually, it's like, don't put the butterfly in a cage. A flower is planted. But this is actually, people are like, why doesn't such and such legend train in a gym?
Or have a gym.
Have a gym or whatever.
Because having a gym is a nightmare.
Well, but no, but they don't have the money to have a gym anyways. But these legends do not align themselves with the power structure of a gym for the exact reason we don't, which is, and it's even worse for them because they have a big name, but they have a very free heart in the lives they live. And if you align yourself with a power structure, you are locked in as a Thai. And we don't see it.
We saw this with Sagat, actually. Sagat was in a fairly good situation in terms of like powerful gym, lots of money, able to kind of like have him in this stable. But when he got out of that, he just you're like, oh, he has wings. Like I didn't realize he had wings.
And so for this, what we're saying is this rule about staying away from power and politics in Thailand isn't just Sylvie's rule. It's actually the reason why you don't find these legends, many legends, some legends, yes, but you don't find these legends aligning with gyms in Thailand because there's a lot of hidden structures in the hierarchy that then they don't want to submit themselves to, especially in the long term. So, to kind of ball that up, our view about power structures is, one, can we bring shine to whatever this power structure is? If we can, it feels good to us, right? We can't bring shine to one. One is fucking a supernova. That feeling we have that we're doing good is a major part of what we're doing, that we're doing good. And then, on the other half of that is, how close should we be before it gets too close? Right?
Yeah, which is not something that we've dialed in.
No, every time it's something very different. It's something very different, yeah. Okay, let's move to another topic. And we'll visit those, maybe more on that list. There's some very interesting ones on those rules.
Okay, should we?
Yeah, we're going to start over.
Okay.
Topic 2.
Do I have to introduce this one?
Yeah, I would like that.
In our last Muay Thai Bones, we started talking about the change in my name and change in my training.
Chemical X.
Chemical X is my new fight name. Go back and watch the other Muay Thai Bones to find out why and what that means. But we were gonna talk about what my training is like, but we got so into these other. This is why our Muay Thai Bones are so long. Is we ended up talking about something else and never actually got into what my training looks like now. And people listened to Bones and were like, "Wait, what is your training look like now?"
Totally. So, and it's you pull on one string, it just. We could have kept talking about our last subject still.
Yeah.
It's like unraveling a sweater. It's incredible how connected every idea is to every other idea.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about how you piece together your training now. What's the way into that?
I don't know.
You don't know?
One of the reasons that I have had to change my training is what we were just talking about keeping distance to politics and power. Patchworking is not a super political or super powerful gym. It's a pretty small gym, but even in a small gym, there are politics and power. I have in my head this very beautiful, there's a woman who's, you would call her a nun because in Thailand women can't be ordained, but honestly she's a monk. She's very famous, and Gansak and the Sorplunjit group used to have a very strong connection with her. There's this really beautiful quote from her that unfortunately I'm translating into English, so it's not as beautiful as it is in the Thai, but she's basically saying anytime you hear gossip, it cannot be extracted from the success of who's being gossiped about. So if you're being gossiped about, it's actually a sign of success, and when you have success, you will be gossiped about. It's basically the exposure creates this thing.
And she's a famous...
Bringing shine brings shit talking.
Yeah.
But so basically, we talked about this in the last Bones, so I'm not going to go super into it, but my increased visibility, the increased recognition of my name makes the fine-tuned issues of that visibility exacerbated in my gym.
So we had
to take distance.
We took extreme distance. We left the gym, basically.
Right. For 3 months?
Something like that, a chunk of time. And we had to compose a training regimen in that absence that put you on the path of 3.0. 3.0 is this thing that we are aiming for. It started when COVID started. We're like, you're not going to be able to fight the way you normally fight. So train in a completely different way and level you up into a very different fighter. So what you do, what you've developed for yourself, is basically just patchworking, drawing from diverse opportunities to create a training regimen in Pattaya, right? And it's not much different than what you did in America.
It's also not much different from what I did when we first came to Pattaya, which was I was training at WKO with Sakmakon. I was training at Patchworking to get clinching and instruction and like real Thai gym. And then I was also going over to Omi-kun, which was Petchi Ja's gym. I had 3 gyms that were like all my gyms.
And even then, there were tensions, but they weren't a big deal because you weren't a big deal.
Yep.
So you were training in 3 gyms, and it was incredibly hard training. Like every gym trained you like you hadn't been to the others. And they're like, why are you tired? Right? Remember that?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So we've always done this kind of piecing together. Like we have a very long history of this.
In America, we did.
In America, we trained with Master K, and then with Gansak, and then with Natalie Foos, and then Sparring Circle, and Ray Velez for boxing.
My first 2 years in Chiang Mai, we were only at Lana, but we were doing private sessions with some of the instructors at Lana, which again was
causing
political
things. Yeah. So piecing things together is kind of the way you've done this for 12 years or 10 years.
So rather than talking about this and not talking about what my training looks like we did last time, what this looks like now is that 3 days a week in the afternoons, I'm at Patchworking, clinching, sparring, and pad work.
Well, wait, no, let's stop. First, let's do, you left Patchworking, so there was no Patchworking. So what did we build in the absence of Patchworking? Because before, the focus was Patchworking, which is basically traditional Thai family style training.
When I wasn't there, I was sparring with Yod Kunpan every morning for an hour, which is intense. Okay,
so what we did was we started sparring with Yod Kunpan at Patchworking.
Right.
Right? Are you with me on this?
Yeah, you give the part that you want to talk about.
Okay, you just want to skip all the part I want to talk about.
Totally. You talk about it.
Should we change this topic and not talk about it?
No, you talk about it. I'm going to talk about what my training is like now. You can bring us up to speed with how we got there.
Yeah, but for me, you're going through training experiences in Thailand that nobody goes through. So to like zip your mouth on them is not helpful. It's like let's share the parts that nobody even knows about. Maybe it'll give people ideas about what they can do themselves. So when we left Patchworking, we had already been training with Yod Kunpan with an hour of sparring.
30 minutes.
Oh, was it 30 minutes? 30 minutes of sparring, very hard sparring every day. That alone was producing political tension in the gym, like a great deal of political tension. And we knew that your sparring is like the cornerstone of 3.0 training for you. So the first thing we did was we locked down Yod Kunpan. And even he had some difficulty politically.
Well, this
is worth
goes
talking
back
about.
to the proximity warning about politics and powerful. There are politics regardless, but powerful is a structure, right?
Yeah.
Part of the difficulty or part of the complication politically with us working with Yodkun Pan is he's not powerful.
Yeah.
We do not hitch ourselves to the powerful part of a gym. It's not like he's the head honcho, I'm going to go connect myself to him. We're like, this is this person who actually is pretty low on the rung, and we're very interested in them for whatever reason, and so we hitch ourselves to the low rung of the ladder. Politically, that doesn't
It causes
go
problems.
well.
Like, we've put a lot of shine on Yodkun Pan and drawn attention to what an incredible fighter he was. But socially, in the Muay Thai scene, he has low rung status for a variety of reasons. And so when we joined alliance with him and you started training hardcore with him, it was a fucking like earthquake socially. Like things that we're not even aware of. We don't know the politics. So this is again what we're talking about. Avoid the politics. We couldn't avoid it. It ended up separating us from Patchworking. And we brought Yodkun Pan out of Patchworking. He lived next door. He's actually not part of the gym. He's just socially connected to them because he's lived and he trains people at the
For
gym
like 10
sometimes.
years he's known them.
Yeah. And so we started training at WKO, but just in off hours, paying them for ring time, right, when there's nobody in the thing. And that became the cornerstone of what we were doing.
And we increased it to an hour.
From 30 minutes to an hour, which was, you were already like, holy fuck, 30 minutes is really hard. Now it's an hour. How does it feel now?
It's still hard.
Manageable, but hard.
Yeah, it's still hard.
Right?
Yeah.
Why does this all make you quiet and sad a little bit? Because I'm excited.
We
because
already talked
we
about this in the
scrambled.
last Bones, talking about the pain of talking about the situation of me leaving Patchworking. So it's not painful anymore. It's not difficult anymore. We're just catching up with how I've the logistics of how I've moved around.
That is not just the logistics. We formed a much tighter bond. We weren't like, we'll just pay you and use your knowledge. We formed a much tighter bond with Yodkun
Yeah, but it's
Pan,
also
like-
been complicated with Yodkun Pan because in leaving the gym and branching out and like being on a little like life raft, but still connected to Yodkun Pan, we had to make it very clear to him, we are not looking for you to now be my crew. This is
Yeah.
sparring. Like, this is not a like, now you're my crew.
Teaching, yeah.
This was not a like, let's create a new king on the pile of sand. It's like,
Yeah.
no power, no politics, like just
Yeah,
kind of.
and he was actually been pretty good with that.
He's
He doesn't
amazing.
go. He's
amazing.
actually amazing and very generous. He's incredibly generous in what he does with
In
you.
his
sparring.
generosity, he wants to teach me something.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, yes, teach me something, but not become my crew. Like, it's complicated.
Yeah, and
Because you also want to be respectful. Crew is actually a position of authority. It's a higher position. So I don't want to be like, no, you don't deserve that. I want to give him respect and allow him to have, not allow him to have, but recognize that he has this kind of position, but also not, let's play these roles. Like,
Well,
you don't want to build a house.
so this goes back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's like avoid the politics and the power center, but still bring shine and respect to somebody. And so people understand, sparring is 99.9% just sparring, but then he wanted to teach you something. And I think what we've guided him towards is, teach me through sparring.
Right.
If he's like, get your hand up, hit me 5 times, instead of turning it into a lesson. And it actually has made it much more dynamic and real.
What's kind of cool too, and I'm not saying that I'm teaching him things because I don't know things that he doesn't know, but sometimes I'll come up with something or I'll start doing something that's not in his wheelhouse of what he does, and he sees the effectiveness of it and he like works with it and
He thinks
creates
about
a little
it.
thing.
He
And
thinks
he
about it.
actually is a crew at a different gym once a week, and I have this feeling like he's kind of like taking things that he's feeling and discovering and like working them in, which Karahat does as well. Karahat is very like an active, he just came up with something and now he's going to like move with it.
Creator. They're both similar in how they think
Yeah.
about things. And you are a conduit of like, I mean, library of techniques. You've trained with the greatest fighters in the history of the country. So you actually have perspectives on techniques. Thais only know the coaching tree and experience tree they went through and some of what they've seen in the ring, but you've actually like studied families of techniques, so sometimes things filter through you and then they see, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And they incorporate it or something like that.
It's like picking up vocabulary because someone has different diction than you, rather than like, I'm going to teach you this word.
Yeah, totally. So that was the cornerstone of what we did. And then we are like, you need help with your hands. And we went to Andre. What's his last name? I don't even remember. We just call him Andre.
It's like Kornev, but I don't know how you actually pronounce it. He's Russian.
He's a Russian kickboxing coach.
Yeah.
Who's has a very distinct like Russian hook heavy boxing style. And he teaches on farmland. Well, explain where he teaches.
His wife runs a equestrian school thing, but they also have like an animal rescue. So it's just this plot of land that has like...
It's bigger than a plot. It's acres.
It's acres of horses, like 1,000-pound pigs, 2 of them, and then a whole like soap opera of dogs with different personalities and things that...
Which you've been getting into the soap opera.
I've been keeping Caro updated on the personalities of all these different dogs and how they like to be pet. It's very different. But what's interesting is like when you go through this first gate, you have to like unlock the gate and close the gate because the horses will get out.
Yeah.
What a weird thing when you're going to the gym, like, oh, can't let the horses out. Like this whole weird scenario. But it doesn't require a lot of space because you're just doing this super high repetition pad work. It's basically an hour of pad work.
And it's almost all hooks. This kind of like jump. Is it a jumping hook? It's a
rip your fucking head off hook is what it is.
Yeah, with both hands.
It's very explosive and like compact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you basically just hit the mitts with him for an hour.
Yeah.
3 days. You were hitting it 3 days a week, right? And then the third thing we added was Warriors Gym. Warriors
with an S.
Which is a Thai. It's kind of a local Thai gym. It's owned by a
Frenchman and his Thai wife. Yeah.
But it's Thai. I mean, it's a Thai gym, really, run by Thais, kind of. And it's out on the lake over here, almost right by the lake.
We moved in Pattaya, so now we're actually closer to these other things. So that also made it.
And so you would go there for sparring, more sparring, and clinching, and occasional pad work. Not much though.
Really,
yeah. So you kind of had dropped pad work.
But I also was doing my own work, like.
Morning.
I don't really want to get into this, but things had gotten. Again, the reason we would have a 5-hour podcast on this staying away from the politics and the power is that in the context of COVID, where everything got really small, like all the customers, like the stuff that fills a gym vanished, like poof, it all just like new growth in a forest just was gone. And so there's a lot of like hyper awareness of the like core in a gym. So my weirdness, like my doing my own thing or like working on my own thing became super visible in my gym, whereas it wasn't really visible before.
Like in Patchworking a year ago, and it's just a popping gym and people on the pads. Sylvie goes into the corner and does her little stuff on the corner bag or in the bag.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Now COVID hits, wipe out 80% of the people in the gym. All you have is like old hardened crews, and there's almost nobody in the gym, and there's Sylvie in the corner doing stuff.
And this is the thing, is that I've been ignored in that gym off and on for 6 years. And it hurts, and then it's okay, and then it hurts, and then it's okay, whatever. But in my like rising visibility, whatever the thing is, it became a like, let's teach Sylvie, like let's start shaping Sylvie, which was never a thing at that gym. And now with this visibility, it became like these crews, like, let's tell Sylvie she's hitting the bag wrong. Like, it
Yeah.
became very constrained in a way that isn't even how the gym functions.
Yeah,
Like, the gym's not like that. And then it suddenly just me only became this, like, let's contain this thing. So, done talking about that. But one of the things I was doing is when I was going to Warriors, I would just train myself, which is like, I don't belong to that gym. The trainers don't care about me. They have no investment in me. There's no shine or shame coming from me in what I'm doing. So I could just train myself. Like, I couldn't even train myself at Patchworking for a while because of the visibility. It was like, what are you doing? Rather than like, she's just hitting the bag herself. We don't care.
Yeah.
It's come back around to now I can train myself. But
so you
for
were
a while,
doing
it was doing my
mornings.
own
You were
thing.
doing mornings at Warriors.
Yeah.
So what you had was 3 days with Andre, ripping the mitts around horses, and then you had
3 days,
3
of
days at
sparring,
Warren,
clinching.
sparring, clinching at Warriors, and you would be also in the morning training yourself, working on stuff you want to work on. You've realized that a very important thing for your motivation is you have to feel like you're steering your own boat,
Captaining my own
captaining
ship.
your own ship, and then 6 days of sparring an hour with Yo Kumpan. Then, for your own satisfaction, your own happiness and well-being, well, we took Warrior out and we made a compromise with Patchworking, where you basically replaced those 3 days with Patchworking, sparring,
Clinching, pad
clinching,
work.
and then pad work because you weren't getting pad work elsewhere. So it's the same setup we did when we left Patchworking, but now you're folded back in. But now we've made a kind of negotiation of you're like no longer their fighter. So to avoid those kind of like politics of
Well,
pressure,
To minimize them.
minimize.
You
You
can't
can't
avoid them.
avoid it. You can't at all. So that's how you've pieced everything together, and all the little parts have to be tuned. It's like as you've been winning recently, then Yo Kumpan feels proud of you. So you're a little more of his student. He mentioned, oh, your boxing coach needs to teach you some more defense. He's thinking about where else you're going. Andre, proud of you. You're fucking ripping the mitts on him. You're winning your fights. I'm sure he's thinking, well, my student. Like, you have to be respectful. We're thinking about doing some sparring work in another gym that could be competitive with his. How do we walk that? And then Patchworking, very old history there. Who knows what they're thinking as you gain more shine for yourself. People talk, like, you constantly have to kind of like rebalance every relationship so that for us it feels like you are constantly showing respect but also getting the opportunity that you need to grow. So that's the story of Sylvie's training now. 6 months from now, it'll be different. It will be different. We constantly have been shifting.
Yeah.
Originally, we came to Pattaya, basically we ran into a dead end in Chiang Mai, where you were not getting the opportunities of training. And we moved to Pattaya to train with Sakmongkon, and then we're like, well, Sakmongkon is only a certain kind of training. We need family style, so that's how we found Patchworking. And then we wanted some more clinch, which is why we went over to Pechi Jha, and you trained with Pechi Jha, who is a little phenom, female fighter. But we've always been kind of like adjusting the recipe as we go. And that's where it's at now. We're in a pretty stable position, but it feels like it always has to be adjusted.
Yeah, you're on the edge again.
Thank you, babe.
There's like a very difficult thing about me. It's not like personal to Sylvie, but in what I am and what like the process we've taken and all of this stuff, which is that like none of it is all good or all bad. And it's very complicated. It's like constantly being on a tightrope. We were at a funeral for Sirimonkan a couple of years
Siri
ago.
Khan, Fighter of the Year 1972, a legend of the sport.
Right.
And
He's in the Muay Thai Library.
We did an interview with him before he died.
We're probably the last interview he ever did. But we were at his funeral, and a lot of big names were also there. So Sagat came because he was Pet Yindi, and Sirimonkan had worked for Pet Yindi. Samson was there. Samson was running around. Samson's young for like the group of Yodmoy and like Golden Age fighters that we talk about. He's like the kid of the group, and he was only running around this funeral like a bad 12-year-old or something.
He was like a kid.
Sit down.
Yeah.
But so I think there were maybe like three, maybe four legends like outside before it started talking to the younger son of Pet Yindi. And they were like, each one of them was like, Sylvie's my student. And then another legend would be like, oh, I know her because she's my student because she's Karahat's student. Like it was this, the younger son of Pet Yindi's eyes were just getting bigger and bigger as these like huge legends were like, she's my student, she's my student, she's my student. This sounds like it's an only good thing. Like who would not want that incredible, like, what shine to be the student of these incredible legends, and it's only 4 out of the like 90 that I've worked with or something. It's incredible. It's not all good. Like that sounds wonderful, and why would that ever be a problem? It's also an insult or a criticism to be like Sylvie of 100 crews. Like she doesn't have this one crew, she has these like 10 crews, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's very painful for me to not have that be an only good thing. And so it's also difficult in when we're talking about this as a like, we're not advising other people to do what I do. We're not recommending people do what I do. We just talk openly about what I do to create the visibility and possibility of things that are not the assembly line path.
But big parts of it are full of difficulty. I suspect that other female fighters have followed your example. I know they want to fight a lot. Now, fighting a ton is a new way of thinking about fighting in
we've
Thailand.
We've seen female fighters who go to other places to try to piece together their own
Well, that's
training.
what I'm going towards. We know Maggie at Hong Kong has followed your example and in fact gone to the actual people we film in the library.
And contacted me and been like, where should I go in Bangkok?
Yeah, but she's felt herself in corners, training opportunity corners, and wanting to become a better fighter. And so trying to augment your training as a female fighter, but also be respectful to your gym. Other female fighters have done this, like gone outside of the formal structure of a gym. I don't know that this has ever been done before. There's a video up of Celeste sparring with a Farang girl from another gym, getting together to spar to create this is what we did back in New York, the female sparring circle, and it hit a huge political wall where you weren't supposed to spar somebody who you might fight and blah, blah, blah.
Who I never fought, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, even sparring across gyms might be a thing. Like, we even ran into politics bringing in Dork Mai Ba to train and spar with you at Petron Rung.
At an empty gym.
At an empty gym, and we were like, that's a political problem? We were like, I was shocked. I'm like, we're just bringing shine to this gym, and like, no, it's political.
Yeah.
And it's like, the example of Maggie, the example of Celeste, are the two that come to mind, but they're probably, Suri, piecing together her training. She goes to Warriors Gym. We ran into her at Warriors. She's gone, I think, to Andre and to Eagle.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, but there is this...
She came to Petron Rung.
There is this feeling, well, because they were moving, they had not opened their gym yet.
Yeah, but she needed sparring, so it's the same, fitting the same need. Yeah.
And this thing that Western female fighters are now starting to think outside of the distinct opportunities given to them at a particular gym. I guess what we want to talk about or need to talk about is this is great. We think of ourselves as free agents in the West and blah, blah, blah. But all of it has ramifications. All of it can feel like disrespect.
And the longer you stay at a place, the more disrespectful it will be.
Yeah, where you think, oh, everything is now like comfortable. Once it's comfortable, it's locked in. It's more locked in than you think it is. Yeah. And you think, oh, it's comfortable, so, oh, you're not offended. Or for a long time, the things you were doing, like training with legends all over Thailand, wasn't a big deal because you weren't a big deal. And then you became a big deal, and now it's like, everything has ramifications. And so a lot of this Muay Thai Bones is about relentlessly pursuing opportunity and relentlessly trying to find the right distance to stay to power structures so that people feel like you're bringing shine, but not so that there's criticism that comes along with it. Yeah. And I don't even know the answer to it because, oh, we're running out of time on this one. Western women are probably going to do more of this in the next 5 years. Yeah. And all I can say is like, it's a learning experience and you have to be respectful, I guess, as you go. Yeah. All right, that's good. Okay, so this is going to be our sign off on the podcast. This is the new... We'll do the old Muay Thai Bones as you travel in cars to fights, but we don't really have that opportunity
normally
that much.
From first topic to last topic, we've covered like half of Thailand.
Totally.
We're still on our couch.
It was only 2 topics
we didn't go
this time.
Anywhere.
I feel like this, in a way, was kind of a heavy Muay Thai Bones because we're talking honestly about relationships and opportunities and like kind of trying to find your way forward.
It's a little bit of a heavy time for Sylvie, actually.
What's this heavy time?
Sylvie's real emotional lately.
What's that about?
I don't know. You can actually listen to our last Muay Thai Bones where we talk about tracking hormones, fluctuations. I answered this question yesterday. We have a new segment called Sylvie Answering Interesting Questions, which normally come off of Reddit. And it's basically, we'll see something on Reddit and it's like, that would make an interesting thing to think about. And so I'll just give my like impromptu, I literally just go outside and like film it. It's not a like drafting process or anything. We've done a couple of them, but it was talking about whether or not it's normal to feel like crying during or after sparring, which for me, totally, I cry a lot. But it's interesting because I actually don't know whether the person asking this question is male or female. But I think that both men and women have that kind of experience where you feel like crying after. But it ties into what we talked about in our last Muay Thai Bones, where hormonal fluctuations play significant roles in actual brain chemistry and sensitivities and heightened awarenesses of things. And so in Sylvie's heavy emotional time that we're in right now, it can't only be hormones. It can't. But it might be heavily influenced by that in terms of like you're having a rough day, but then you get drunk and now you're having a really rough day kind of thing. It's kind of like that. So it is a difficult time in my process, and Kevin keeps reminding me that like it just might be like this for like the next year or so.
I do remind you of that?
You said it yesterday.
I think I was talking about something in particular though. What was that?
You're talking about my process, because we just talked about my process, what my schedule looks like now and what my training is, and piecing it together. These are not easy pieces. Like each piece is very jagged and heavy and slippery and all of these things, and trying to like work them all together is very difficult.
I'm very amazed at you being able to kind of like climb this. I've always returned to this movie that we watched that we talked about at one time. What's it called? Freestyle or something?
Oh, the mountain climbing one?
Yeah, what is the name of that?
I don't know. We'll have to put it in the notes. I think it is like freestyle or free climb or something.
Free climb, I think it's called. About it's a documentary about the climbing of a rock face without protective ropes. That if you fall,
you die,
basically. And this guy, who's a world-class mountain climber, is going up this rock face.
Two guys,
actually. That other guy gets no credit. So weird.
Well,
they lock in a little bit, though, don't they?
I don't know what the rules are. It's not important, but it's...
Yeah, but it's very fatalistically dangerous.
Yes.
And you're finding footholds, handholds as you go. And sometimes when you get to a part in the rock face, it looks like there's no foothold or handhold.
And you can't traverse a part that's like that big, and you're like, why can I not get past? Because you have to jump with no rope. You have to like lizard hop it. It's crazy.
And it feels like that's very much what you do. We make a thing like 267 fights. We put numbers up there, 450 fights, 470 fights, to create goalposts and frames by which to understand what you're doing. But what you're really doing, and damn, we did not get to this Yod Moy magical fighter thing.
No, it's on a longer one.
I'm so interested. That'll be the next one. I'm really interested in it. I don't want to lose track of it. But this path you want to get to as a fighter, not a female fighter, a fighter, is like climbing that rock face barehanded, and you're looking for footholds and handholds, and you get to places in the climb. And it's kind of like, this is what we went through with Petra and Rung, actually. You climb up the rock face, and you're like, holy shit, there is no handhold above this point. And you have to climb back down the rock face, feel like you're regressing, to move over and to climb a different route up that mountain. And it feels like, I mean, yeah, the fights are hard and whatnot, but it feels like actually the emotional terrain of trying to improve yourself as a fighter in the context of Thai culture, which has tremendous opportunities and riches of knowledge, but also very tricky landscape of politics and power that you want to be respectful to and honor. It is like climbing a rock face, and like the last 8 months have been like, wow, is there a handhold? Where is the next finger little spot? And I have to say, I'm just very like in awe of the work you do trying to get to up that mountain face. Like, it is really something. That leaves you speechless. It's a podcast, baby.
It's supposed to be a sign off, and it's getting very heavy.
It's a impromptu podcast. I'm just in awe of it. It's, for everybody out there, it's a very difficult path. It's not just do the work, take the injuries, recover, do the work. And I think it's also a key to the fact that it's an art and an expression of yourself, and that you have to dig through layers of yourself in order to produce the freedom and authenticity that you want.
Yeah. And there's no, like if you're playing a video game where you have to like go through all these different levels and like beat the end guy to get to the next one or whatever the thing is, your character is more or less unchanged throughout the entire storyline, whereas in like a cinema or something, when you go through this process, the protagonist changes.
Oh, it's like Tenet, which we just saw last night.
I don't want to talk about that. I'm changing.
Yeah.
So like the things that were hard 4 years ago could be more hard now or could be less hard now because I'm shifting too. Like I'm not the same person I was when I was doing this other thing. So it's not like because I didn't change, the experience of 267 fights means that I'm now desensitized to and don't get nervous, don't get scared, don't whatever these things, because that unchanged thing has had all of this influence. You change with it. And so it's a completely different ecosystem all the time. So things that weren't hard 4 years ago are terrifying now, and things that were terrifying 4 years ago are like, I don't even think about it
And when they
anymore.
are unexpectedly terrifying, it's like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's very surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is that makes people think that like life is a progressive things getting easier. Like, nothing gets easier in life at all. Like, nothing will be harder than having a newborn baby, and then you have a 14-year-old and you're like, this sucks.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for supporting Sylvie's path and our discussions like this, these very real and honest discussions. And I hope to keep bringing the Muay Thai Bones more regularly now with you guys. If you want to, if you're watching this on YouTube, which is it's free on YouTube. By becoming a patron, even $1 patron, you get access to the full audio subscription version of these podcasts. You can just
Spotify or iTunes, however you get your podcast, you can listen to it as a podcast as a patron.
Which is pretty cool, and you get all the reading notes. So during a podcast, we mention films or videos or fights or books that we've read. You can go then footnote hop. That's available for our patrons too. And don't forget the Muay Thai Bones t-shirt.
It's pretty slick.
Made by Bleeding Edge. You can get that ships internationally. The profits of that go to the Crew Fund, which means it goes to distributed. Once a year we distribute 10% of all patron pledges, and 100% of the profit of all the apparel we sell, designated as Crew Fund apparel, which this is, then gets distributed among all the crews yearly. That's kind of cool. We're thinking of actually, we're taking steps, more than thinking of setting up a Thai foundation, which will be like...
Speaking of politics, it's
well,
complicated.
But it's not politics.
It's not politics, but it's actually setting it up.
Yeah, within working with a lawyer, set up a Thai foundation, which would be a charitable fund location for the support of all the legends, so we can do exciting things like raise money for legends, cover possibly medical costs of some particular, if a legend comes into a situation or something like that, all with the support of patron that we're getting from everybody. So ready, cue music?
Oh no, do I need a different soundtrack now that we're on the couch?
Why?
Okay.
Ready?
Dun, 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 dun.
You are Sarah Connor.
I am Sarah Connor.